welcome to my studio again. And today we're going to be talking about the 5 steps to a successful mixed media collage. And I thought today I would go over some of my own work and show you some pieces and some examples. But first I wanted to thank you so much for all of your subscriptions and your wonderful feedback and comments. We really appreciate it, and we're enjoying doing the vlog, and we hope you are too. So we're going to get started right now. So there are 5 steps to create a successful collage, and the first one is texture. The second one is creating a focal point. The third one is carrying on a small conversation within your work. The fourth one is the large conversation within your work. And the 5th step is to unify the piece. So in teaching about this today and sharing it with you, I wanted to show my work and give you some examples of what this looks like rather than actually creating a piece in front of your own eyes. So this piece was created in 2013. This was for the Summer So Somerset issue, and it's called Les Fleurs, and I actually created several pieces that went along with this piece. The texture underneath was created by gessoing the board. It's actually hard board, which I really particularly like working on, and then the pages were glued on top, which left the impressions of the gesso underneath, which I quite like. And then the focal image, the flowers, create a triangle in the composition, and they are actually, this is canvas that I printed the antique piece onto canvas and then directly applied it. So it creates great texture with the little stitches, and it came out quite successfully. This next example that I'm using was published in excuse me, Seth Apter's The Pulse of Mixed Media, which is an awesome book, and you might want to pick that up. And Seth is a really wonderful artist, and I loved being in his book. And this is the piece that was in the book, and it is called Mysterious. And the very first step, texture, begins on this board with gessoing the board first, and then I glued pieces down that were actually in a grid format, and there were different kinds of papers excuse me, and so you can actually see the texture of the different papers underneath. The focal point in this is this tiny image. It doesn't really matter if your focal point, if your main image is large or small, just as long as your composition is good and tight. And composition is a topic for another day, because there's a lot to talk about. There are lots and lots of YouTube videos on composition and creating a good, crisp composition. This piece has a small and a large conversation going on it, just like the other piece did. The other piece had little tiny dots and conversation going on in the paperwork underneath, and so does this. This is handwriting in French here, and it has tiny little handwriting at the top, and then tiny little dots that popped right out of the background. So the larger conversation is seeing this picture from a distance, and then when you move in close, you can actually see the words and the writing, which is very intriguing and holds your interest. These are 2 of the pieces from my French paper series, and I found these when I went to Fort Collins for my show. I have several pieces that were unframed that we're going to mount on boards, and they'll be available this Christmas for purchase. And I wanted to show you these because it's a really great example of all of the 5 steps, but also of unification. And by unification, I mean that you are pulling the whole collage together. In the last piece, you saw that I painted the background a gray, and I used glazing medium and black. In this case, I used a little bit of Titan Buff and a tiny bit of walnut ink to create and to edit the pieces that I decided I did not want to see, and that helped create the background, which also corresponded to the brown paper in the back. So you have the focal image, you have the smaller conversations, you have the larger conversation going on, and then you have unification, and of course the texture in antique book pages. The next piece I wanted to share with you was in Roxanne Evans Stout's wonderful book, Storytelling with Collage. It's another book I highly recommend, and it's absolutely wonderful. So many tips in here as well. And this piece was in this book, and this is a highly textured piece. So number one, it gets that first step really well. There's a lot going on. This was a piece of paper that I actually dripped with water so that it corroded the top layer, and you can actually see the words underneath. The focal point is this wing that was corroded to begin with, and I simply used some gold leafing on it to bring it out. And the small conversations going on in the background and in the Italian collage pieces here are the small conversation. The larger conversation is when you get back and you can actually see that this word, which means forget, or lest we forget. And to unify this, I used Titan Buff and Walnut ink again to create that unification of the surfaces behind and really make the images pop. I hope you enjoyed this little segment on 5 steps for creating a successful mixed media collage. And just to reiterate those steps, they are texture, focal point, small conversation, large conversation, and unification. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for stopping by. Ciao for now.
This is going in the video.
Okay, stop. I hope you enjoyed this quick video today on